Hi, everybody. It is Friday, November 30th, and this is the Wrap It Up, Keep It Up webinar from AcryMo 2018. So, first of all, I just want to say that if you are engaged enough to be watching this either now or later, or in the replay or live with me on air, that you have done AcryMo. There is so much pressure in a month like this to make it all about the goals. But one of the hardest things is to actually stay engaged with something, with a plan, with a goal over the course of 30 days. So if you have thought about AcryMo every day or most days or read the emails or sat on the webinar calls, then to me, you've won the month. There is something to be said for tenaciously pursuing the idea of keeping your project, whatever it is, active and present in your mind and on your to-do list. So if you're here watching it now or later, congratulations, you've made it. This webinar is going to be a little bit more informal. I don't have any signs because I couldn't figure out the right things to write on them. So I do have a couple of things that I want to make sure I say. The first half of this webinar is going to be devoted to kind of helping you process what happened this month, what worked well, what didn't. And then the second half is going to be about taking the lessons, whatever they were, from AcryMo 2018 and moving them forward. So first thing, I would encourage all of you, if you haven't done so yet, to go back and look at your goal sheet. Not to say how close you got or if you did it or if you managed it, but just to revisit with that person that filled out that line on the sheet. If you didn't fill it in the public accountability sheet, then revisit your goal wherever you wrote it down, or even just think back to what you wrote on October 30th, or maybe November 1st, or maybe November 15th or 20th, if that's when you got started. But take a moment to remember why it was important that you started this in the first place. And I think that that is an important thing to connect to first, because if we put all of the focus on whether or not we made the goal or didn't make the goal, then we forget why we started to do the goal in the first place. What about it was important? Is it that you really want to make progress on your dissertation and it's really important to you that it feels substantially farther before the end of the year? Check in with that feeling. Is it that you are now with your PhD and you're out in the world and you really want to get that article out and published? Check in with that motivation. Check in with the hope and the anticipation and the importance of why you started this journey in the first place. So, step one, check in with who you were a month ago. Step two is to realistically assess how you did this month. So maybe you assess and you say, I didn't write every day, like I said I was going to, but I did consistently check on my project every day. I thought about it, I kept it present, I emailed, I took some meetings, I made notes, and yes, I didn't get a full draft the way I wanted to, but I checked in every day. Maybe your goal you've realized was unrealistic from the beginning. Maybe the real takeaway from AcryMo 2018 is that you are compelled to set unrealistic goals and then set into a cycle where you don't meet the goal and the guilt and the shame sort of spirals and you don't want to set any goals. So maybe your real takeaway and win from 2018 isn't necessarily that you have a full draft of a project. Maybe it's that you really got some clarity into how you make your goals, how you set up the systems to support them, and whether or not they're realistic for the configuration of your life as it is. Maybe you completely crushed your goals. Maybe you set a 10,000 word goal and you hit it. You hit it early. Maybe you hit it right today. Maybe you'll hit it tomorrow, but you made it there. It's important then to look back and say, okay, what really worked about this month and about this structure for me? Was it that there was a place for me to work every day? Was it that I made time in my schedule every single day moving forward? So going through and saying, yes, whether or not I made my goal is an important data point, but there are other data points for me to consider about this AcryMo experience. Looking at the picture holistically will really help you move and think through how you approach your writing as a daily practice. Because the real secret of AcryMo 2018 is that very few successful academic writers write in focused ceremonial bursts in the month of November. Tenure cases are not made or broken in AcryMo. Dissertations are not written or not written in the month of December or the month of February or the month of November for that reason, for that matter. This is not the way that academic writing as a practice works. It might be that you stumbled this month on your exact right configuration for your life right now of how writing becomes something that you integrate regularly. But maybe what you've realized is that focused bursts of writing that are set aside, that are special, that are high pressure, aren't the way that you do your best writing at all. So when I sat up at night, sometime around November 15th or 16th, I sat up in the middle of the night and wrote down in the journal that I keep by my bed, November is a terrible month, and I should have never done this. And I want to be real about that because my own experience this month was very uneven. I could show you, and maybe I will post in the Slack, my 750 words counter because I get an X for every day that I did it. I got a slash if I started it but didn't finish it. And then there are a lot of blank boxes on my personal writing challenge. And I wasn't even trying to get a formal draft. All I was trying to do was to write 750 words, no matter what they were, every day. And here I am, coach, organizer of this whole situation, and I didn't even get it. And one of the lessons that really came through for me is that there are many things about Academic Writing Month as a challenge that don't really suit academic writing as a practice. It's very hard to set aside 30 uninterrupted days of writing without any disturbances whatsoever. I couldn't manage it, and I'm not even in grad school or a tenure track professor. I literally set my own schedule and I still couldn't do it. So there's something to be said for the fact that this might not be the way that academic writing happens. There's also something to be said for the fact that November is an incredibly difficult month. It is in the northern hemisphere getting dark, getting gray. For many places, it's the wrap up of a semester or a term. For everybody, it's the end of the year where you start to feel the pressure of everything that happened in 2017 or 2018 or all of it and the pressure of what you need to get done by 2019. November is a hard month, and this challenge is not particularly suited for academic writing as it's structured. But that being said, I think that we can all find the bits and pieces of what happened this month that we can pull aside and say, you know what? It's not really sustainable for me to write every single day without stopping. It is sustainable for me, though, to set aside a chunk of time on a regular basis that everyone in my family, everyone in my network knows that I protect Tuesdays and Thursday mornings for writing. And then to take that, because that captures some of the ceremony of AcryMo. That captures some of the structure and the non-negotiable nature of those blocks. Find what works for you and then turn it not necessarily into a writing challenge or fuel to say, I can write in massive amounts of time or in huge blocks if I give myself the right space. But use the lessons of this month to say, what can I do to make my writing a regular, scheduled part of my academic, my professional life? What about this can I translate into something that's sustainable? So one of the things that I've thought is really helpful is to break down the idea of writing as either words on the page or nothing at all. This is one of the most common things that I saw moderating the Slack group and also working with various clients and taking calls this month, is that there was all of this anxiety about what counted as writing. I understand, because word counts are particularly concrete, and so many of us want something concrete to measure. I wrote 100 words today, and if I write 100 words every day, soon I will have a draft, because drafts are 10,000 words and 100 will eventually get into 10,000. It feels concrete, it feels measurable, and that's amazing. But as one of our participants said, I just wrote 10,000 words and it's not really a draft yet. It's just a draft zero. So writing as a process is nonlinear. The different stages take different amounts of time, and everybody's brain handles them differently. So for me, what I've noticed is that it takes me a long time to move from idea that I kind of sketch out in a sentence and then a paragraph and then an outline into the first draft. But once I get a first draft, my process is much faster from there, because it's all of the hard work is getting it from this sort of abstract fuzzy thing into my brain onto a page so that I can share it with people, so that I can revise it, so I can print it out, so I can see it. Some people I know really, really struggle with the editing and the revising. They sit down, the words flow, it's amazing, and then they get it into their computer, it exists in real life, and they can't stand to look at it anymore. The fun part, the creative part, the initial rush and fun of new excitement is over, and they just can't stand to think one more time about whether or not this is a good topic sentence or not. So I share that not to say that one part is more important than the other, that your parts have to all go in the same order, but that everybody's process is not a straight line that moves at a regular pace from start of idea to finished published manuscript. Your process might be a lot more like this, where it feels really fun and then it hurts a lot and then it feels great and then you get feedback and it feels awful. So let your process be the guide of what sort of supports you can take from this month and add in. The other thing that's become really clear as I've watched everybody work this month is that there is something magical, and this is why I will do ACRIMO again next year, about the ceremony of it all, about the changing of October to November, about the concrete and contained nature of a month set aside dedicated to writing. So if the ceremony of ACRIMO really appealed to you, there are all kinds of ways to build that sort of ceremony back in. Maybe it's that you start hosting for yourself or for your friends or for your department writing retreats that are either in person or online, where you just say, you know, every third Saturday, I'm going to spend from 10 to 4 p.m. working on my writing. And I'm going to have snacks and I'm going to have a playlist, and it's going to feel special, and it's going to be set aside as dedicated. That can give you the same kind of ceremony and importance that a big group challenge like ACRIMO does. But you can do it every Saturday if you want, or just every third Saturday if you, like me, would like to preserve your weekends. Maybe it's that you need the public accountability of setting a goal. So maybe every last day of the month, you sit down with your planner and your notebook and you say, I am setting this goal for this month. And you do that with a special coffee, or you do it in your library, or you do it set aside with special notebooks and pens that make you feel happy. But if you turn this process of setting goals into something that you don't just do when you're overwhelmed and you need to focus, but something that you check in with regularly, it can really add that level of ceremony and importance that a big group challenge has into what you're doing every single month. I love monthly planning. Also because it doesn't fit into the semester plan, because months change for everybody, no matter who they are. So it doesn't matter if you're busy, if you're stressed, you know that at the end of the month, you wrap up what happened before, you look back, you evaluate, and then you plan moving forward. I think it's easier to protect things when the date, the fact that the month changes, is out of your control, as opposed to saying, I will evaluate at the end of this project, because sometimes the project never ends. Okay, so those are my thoughts on ceremony. The last thing I would say is that, and this is where we transition into part two, moving forward from now into the rest of your writing life as it continues. So, like I said, go back and uh, check your line in the spreadsheet. Sorry, I totally forgot what spreadsheets were called for a second. But look in that reward box. I put that reward box in there for a couple of different reasons. And I really went back and forth, and ultimately I decided to do it. And this is why. I think it's important that rewards happen, not necessarily because you reach a goal, but because any effort that you put forth should be recognized by someone, even if that person is just you. So I give myself rewards all the time, and I'm more productive now than I've ever been. So, as far as I know, there's no inverse correlation between the amount of time you spend feeling good about your accomplishments and your ability to continue feeling good about your accomplishments. I feel better about myself and I get even more done. So I'm just one data point, but also that seems to be the trend with my clients and also with behavioral training in psychology as a field. If you learn to associate feeling good with the process of working, it makes it easier to work. But that reward box also can give you a hint into what you feel like you're valuing that you're not really building into your schedule right now. So I looked at a lot of those rewards, and some of them are I want a new piece of equipment, or mine was that I want a fancy piece of yarn to knit with. But a lot of them were I would like a full day off where I don't feel guilty, or I really want to spend a nice dinner with my partner, or I want to go and have a guilt free family trip to the zoo. Or I want to take time off, or I want to read a book for fun. So go look at your rewards and see if there's a hint there about what you feel like is missing in your life and what you feel like you don't deserve to do unless you finished your work. I would then challenge you, no matter what your status of your goals are this month, whether you crushed it, whether you got a little bit off track, to give yourself that reward anyway. And this is why. Because if you set up the expectation with yourself that you'll have this good thing coming and then you take it away, it only leads you to associate the loss of good things with your writing. It only furthers the reinforcement of the idea that writing keeps us from the rest of our lives. So take some time, figure out what you did accomplish, feel good about it, and then give yourself a reward for committing to the process of academic writing at all. Maybe you decide that your day off isn't necessarily a celebration of your accomplishments in AcroIMO, but maybe it's a celebration of everything that you've accomplished since January. Maybe you decide to take that day and say, I might not have gotten that full chapter draft in, but I did write at least a couple of words 20 out of 30 days this week, and that's the long or this month, and that's the longest streak I've ever had. So yes, I didn't accomplish this specific goal, but I am building a practice and I deserve to feel good about that. But if you are constantly categorizing certain activities as these are things that I can do only if I do well at my work, then it really sets up the idea that these other parts of your life, your family, your time off, your rest, your physical well being, are secondary to the work that you do. And that can be a really damaging thought pattern moving forward. We all slip into it. We all feel like when the deadlines are on us or when we're behind, that nothing is more important than catching up. But what I have come to understand and what I really encourage my clients to help see is that your life in its fullness, in its messiness, in all of the things that keep you from your desk as much as they motivate to keep you there, those are the things that will last, that will persist even after the draft is finished. So if you're saying that I really want to go out for a nice dinner with my partner, or I want to go out for a nice weekend away with myself, or I want to spend a whole afternoon fiction reading, really think about what makes those activities feel like you only deserve to do them if you've done your writing, and then see what happens if you let yourself do that anyway. Nobody is saying that you should abandon all of your professional goals for the last month of the year and exclusively read books in a snow-covered cabin, although that would be my fantasy. I'm saying that you can afford, and in fact, it will enrich you to set evenings aside to be with your family or your friends. It will enrich your work to read more widely, even if it's fiction, even if it's science fiction, even if it's Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey. It will enhance your sense of well-being to invest in a hobby that lets you know that you can have goals and accomplish things that are outside of the system of peer review. But if you never let yourself have those experiences until the work is done, then it makes it even harder to navigate the necessary ups and downs of what a life writing is like. So those are the majority of my thoughts for Academic Writing Month. I'll be sending one final wrap-up email on Monday with some news about the ways that things are going to be continuing. Spoiler alert, the Slack room will still stay open. I still might be hosting writing retreats from time to time. There will definitely be ways to work with me in terms of joining a group that I run for graduate students that's restarting again in January. But it's important to me that this month is less about plugging the future ways to collaborate and more about taking some time to really reflect on what made the practice of writing, the idea that writing is sustainable in your life, something that seems achievable and doable. So my best and happiest wishes for the rest of 2018. It has been my absolute pleasure to run and host these events for you. Please let me know if you have any questions. Again, look out for that email on Monday. And please know that by simply committing to the idea that you want to write more or want to write something else, or that you have ideas that deserve to be out in the world, that you're making progress, and that progress doesn't have to be linear in order for it to be successful. So take a minute, feel good about what you did do, make a plan for what hasn't happened yet, and make sure that you let yourself feel good in whatever concrete and abstract ways that makes sense for you. Happy Friday. Happy almost December, and thanks so much for joining me. See you soon.